Today's conversation is with David Rios. David is, I think he's, when I first met David, he's probably one of the sharpest tech scouts I've met. Very, very straightforward, serious guy. David, I don't know if you know it, but you can be intimidating. And I respect what you do. We all do, but very much care about your attitude towards what we do and how you reach out to help the innovators. I know you've got a shadow with Brett Sheringhausen, but you stand tall, and we're very glad to have you here today. So what I'd like to do is just thank everybody for being here. We want to chat about the conference, but we'll do that after David is through. So no matter how long or short it goes, if you're wanting to hear about the conference, some updates on information, please hang in there. If you can't, know that it will be in the recording. So we'll cover that and you can come back to it. So with that, David, I'd like to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself, because I think I know your position. I know what it was, but I would like to make sure that I get it right. So I'm going to let you start.
Sure, thanks, Alan. And just to be clear, do I get the full 3 hours?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, as Alan's saying, my name's Dave Rios. So my background is I was 24 years as a helicopter pilot in the U.S. Navy. My last tour, I ended up at United States Central Command in Tampa, Florida. And I've been there ever since. I retired back in 2013. And part of my job is acting as a tech scout for CENTCOM and also just the Department of Defense as a whole. The other is to find DoD research projects, whether they're old ones, legacy, or new emerging ones, and make sure that information doesn't get lost. And that's where I'll talk on, if you see on the slide, DTIC, which is where that registry exists. And then the Information Analysis Centers is where the research portion of that happens. So I'll go ahead and get started, assuming that I know how to advance a slide. Let me see. So how do you advance these slides?
You're muted, Alan.
We're seeing your slide, but it didn't advance.
Yeah, I'm trying to see why. Before I just, there we go.
There we go.
I think this is the whole press the button and wait, 30 seconds for it to happen. Gotcha. So you can read on here, but primarily DTIC, it's basically a server that has stored information, basically called STI, scientific and technical information, that's goes all the way back to 1937. So we actually had to convert microfiche and everything else to get it electronic. There's documents in there that you can access as just a regular civilian, and then there's other ones that are either at a higher classification or at a higher distribution level. So distribution A, which is basically open source information, you can pull out of DTIC and do using their wiki search. The other, anything that's a distribution B or higher, you cannot, but it's a really good resource for information, whether you want like baseline research, find information even on subject matter experts, because a lot of the documents actually do have contact information, whether it be an email or a phone number of who actually ran it, the project. So if you see on here, it's kind of like what I was talking about. So you have open to the public access. You do have access to the librarian resources, some budget data, and that's referring to within the Department of Defense where we spend money, whether it be the modernization of all the military services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard also publishes in there. And like I said, the research reports. So, and if you see on the bottom, the Defense Innovation Marketplace, I'll get into that a little bit further here. Everything to the right, you would not have access to unless you had a either security clearance, either were a uniformed military, government civilian for the DoD, or other a department, or we're a Department of Defense contractor. So that's why I was talking about the additional stuff. I'll skip this slide. So this is kind of the way that we look at things. You have academia and industry, which we think is very important to bring in emerging technologies, because we know as a especially Department of Defense, we know that the government doesn't have the solution for everything, and that's where we think that bringing you folks in is very important and critical. We do have acquisition resources, of course. We do have, when it says labs, it's referring to the service labs. We do have about 25 service labs that are working on projects, some unclassed, some working on secret level, some of the top secret level. And so my job and some of the other Department of Defense technology scouts is to see what the other service labs are working on at a higher classification level, because we do have access to those. And then when we review your technology, saying if yours maybe does the same thing but a little bit different, or maybe a better unique solution, or is something entirely new that we haven't seen. And that's actually refreshing. We refer to those as kind of as a game changer. Unfortunately, we cannot share information that's coming out of the labs that is classified. So sometimes you may think you have like the greatest thing, and you might, for a go-to-market space in the civilian or sector, but on the DoD sector, we may have either something better or similar, but we just can't disclose that. And this is what I was referring to. So Defense Innovation Marketplace, this was built as probably we saw as our best user interface to bring in non-DoD personnel. So even other departments within the federal government, local and state governments, and then also just regular industry and your everyday civilian that is trying to see how does the DoD work? What is the Department of Defense asking for as requirements or gaps that they've identified? So this becomes a very good space that you as a company can look at as a resource to see. I think some of you might be familiar with the term broad agency announcement, but it's where we come out and just say, hey, in just regular form, hey, this is what we're looking for. Sometimes we can't get into full detail because that makes it classified, but we give you a general sense of like what it is we're looking for. When we say if you do have something similar to that or might answer this as a requirement or a gap filler, then it tells you how to apply for it, who to contact, and then and see if we're interested in your technology. And then we of course do like the events like Alan and his team and some of the other technology events that we've come to set up within the United States, where we come to you and set it up kind of like as a Shark Tank, but it's more of as a better interface than that, where we can look, see, touch. Sometimes if we're face to face, virtual becomes a little bit harder to see, a demonstration or actually touching if there is a prototype or seeing a demo. But we see those as very good venues to use, that we can actually have some. And sometimes if you're at a lower tier, I'll maybe give a recommendation if you want like a project, your product improved on, because sometimes we've seen similar stuff, but sometimes, like I said, you might have a unique solution that we can sometimes just give you free advice and help you refine it. But there's the website there, defenseinnovationmarketplace.mil, and I'll let you read the rest on there. But it's a very good resource, and also it also gets by the jargon that Department of Defense uses. Because I think there's a section in there called, how to do business with DoD. And you'll see that sometimes you may have to restructure your proposal to fit within the scope, and basically using the words that we're using, so that you're using similar terminology, that when someone who is a funding source reads it, they understand that what you're presenting is something exactly that they're looking for. So what I want to highlight on this slide is, so under communities of interest, so under the Defense Innovation Marketplace, there is a section that has communities of interest listed. Those are kind of like bins that we've put technologies that not just Department of Defense is interested in, but we think that covers a lot of the technologies that are out there. So and you'll see that when you click on them, there's actually subsets within those. For example, we'll have whether it be like different kinds of metallurgy, resilient systems. You'll see cyber in there. You'll see even like counter UAS. You'll see energy, things of that nature. And of course, you put something out there that just says energy. It's like, okay, well, what are you looking for specifically? And then it deep dives into, are we looking for battery storage? Are we looking for alternative energy sources? Like solar, wind, thermal, things of that nature. But you can see how and then within there too, that actually does help you get to some of the jargon that we use. So you can use that when you're writing your proposal to make sure you're using the right terminology that we understand. I'll skip this one. That one's not the best slide. So this is kind of how we're set up. So you have ASD is also known as OSDs. So basically, ASD is the Assistant to the Undersecretary of Defense. So under SecDef. So we're talking like Pentagon. R&E is research and engineering. So DTIC falls under OSD, research and engineering, and then beneath that, the Department of Defense IAC, the Information Analysis Center. So that's my boss, the director of that. His name is Mr. Brent Ishizaki, and so he has given me a lot of, and myself and my cohorts that I work with, a lot of freedom to go to events like Alan is running and pay for those for us to get there on and give us an actual travel budget to meet with companies, which is good because you'll see some of these funding. Now we don't have funds, but we do know where to off ramp you off to whatever service or unit within the services. But you'll see that a lot of the units, sometimes even the services, do not have funding, or they can't attend just due to the fact of they're busy, or for example, like right now, they're under like a continuing resolution, which sometimes prohibits travel, or because they work directly for the Department of Defense, they're on restricted travel, whether due to COVID or other restrictions. So it's nice that we are funded to actually go, and we don't have those similar type of restrictions. And we are Department of Defense contractors. I just want to specify that. So we cannot speak on behalf of the government, but we do have a lot of knowledge on it and who to interface to and put you in contact with the folks that are within the government, DoD specifically. So this deeper dives into the Information Analysis Center. So this is the part where these are run by a contracting company. In fact, it used to be 3 different contract companies. These are all now run by just one contract company. And so the Information Analysis Center director pays for that contracting company to provide these services for the Department of Defense. So you'll see the CSIAC, DSIAC, and HDIAC. CSIAC, very, no surprises there. It's everything that is, whether it's moving information, storing information, or just the cyberspace. Homeland Defense one is kind of strange because it does it does get into some homeland security type issues, but also into biometrics, medical, cultural studies, alternative energy, things of that nature. And then the DSIC is pretty much the catch-all for everything else. And you'll see what their topic areas are there under. And the Department of Defense uses them to either go into DTIC server space and try to pull past research or current research that is within an area before we start a project, just to make sure, because the Department of Defense is enormous. But we use them as a resource to find what has been done in the past. Maybe if there's also some of the projects that are ongoing that maybe we can lean on subject matter experts with, or maybe combine projects. But we use them also to get a very good, solid subject matter expert if we want to put together like a working group. And we've also used them to establish baseline research for a project before we start it. Because sometimes before you start a project, you have to get funding for it if you can't fund it entirely. And a lot of times the baseline research helps us as a launch point to ensure that what we're doing and what we're spending federal dollars on is unique, and it not just answers the requirement, but we found a unique solution for it. So that's what we use our resource for. And then here are the DTIC references. Some of them I've already mentioned. But a lot of these, if you just go under dtic.mil, under NIPR, that's what a lot of you won't be able to get on the SIPR side of it, so the secret side. But just on public access, just dtic.mil, and you can access everything in there beneath other resources as well. And Alyssa's Joe Hack on the bottom there. He's one of my counterparts. He sits at United States Special Operations Command, and then I also have another associate, that Tim Fowler, who is in Omaha, Nebraska, and he sits at a United States Strategic Command. We did have a Indo-PACOM gentleman. He retired, and we're backfilling him as we speak. So that's it. I'll hand it over to Alan if we want to go into questions. I haven't looked in the chat, but I'll let Alan manage it from here if anybody has any questions.
So David, so I guess you were talking about Lee Stewart that left, that's who
Yes.
retired. So
Yeah.
I guess he's off riding his bike 100% of the time now.
Yeah.
He was quite a bike rider. So I think part of our curiosity is, or one of the things we're looking for, we're going back and reaching out to our clients who have small business innovators who have participated in the past Encountering Innovation conferences from 2017 forward, so the last 5 years. And Tim Fowler spoke to me, who, for those of you that don't know, David was talking about a while ago as one of the associates, one of the IACs. He talked about a particular client or a gentleman who was presented in 2017, and how what he was presenting was one specific technology or benefit of a technology. So he really talked about the benefit. But from that, he has pivoted, if you will, to the feature or the technology itself, and now has said, would you be interested in something completely different, but it was something that was of interest, in this case, of space, for Space Force or NASA. And Tim said, yeah, and his point was, there's a good example of taking a technology that we've seen, but it was a specific benefit that, and we didn't see it. We didn't take it apart and say, hey, could you do this? I remember the conversation didn't happen. And so for him to come back, and so I'm just curious, for those that are existing, and I see several folks here that have been on in past Encountering Innovation conferences, how do they, based on what you just presented, what you showed us, how do they go back and research or find, is there a way for them to go back and see their technology anew, if you will, where it would possibly be needed again. Does that make, that's a long question, probably.
No, and I will say the whole front of that question was cut off, but I do understand what you're asking. So, you know, what we have done is the companies that we've seen in the past, we do take and store the quick Bs, so the quad chart, the information paper, and the presentation, and the last B is just the bluff, but the bottom line up front, which is basically the elevator speech, you know, one paragraph of explaining what it is. But we do take those and we do put those in the bins that I was referring to as the communities of interest, and we'll take and we'll put them in there, just because even though we do have a lot of touch space within DoD, I haven't been out to every service lab. Every service lab, their requirements change because they're the ones who are supposed to be answering the call to the services. There's service announcements where they'll come out and say, hey, this is what we're looking for this year. They have technology challenges that are listed out that we had no idea that they're even putting together, and all of a sudden a service will release something like that as a cash prize. NASA is famous for doing that also. We work with NASA now. We also work with Department of Homeland Security, which is new. So, you know, I'll use that example as, so Department of Homeland Security, they've just come on board with us within the last year. Actually, I'll say 2 years, because it was probably right in the middle of 2020 during COVID. And so we knew all the requirements, or most, I'd say probably 80% of the requirements within Department of Defense. And then here comes this entirely new Department of Homeland Security, and they're asking for sometimes similar requirements, but with a different catch to them, because when we're using certain technologies, especially overseas, we're not as restricted as sometimes when you want to use them in the United States. And then there's also some legalities, some policy issues that you have to get by when you're using within the states, on just rules that they have to play by. So even though they were asking for almost the exact same technology, they had to get deeper and specify that they could only use it for certain purposes, certain ranges, sometimes certain frequencies, because the FCC within the U.S. Regulates those of what they can and can't use. So, you know, that just gives an example of, okay, if they're looking for something even more specific, so we'd go in and either ask that company that we'd worked with before and said, hey, can you fine tune this to meet Department of Homeland Security? And then there's other times where DHS was asking for something entirely new that Department of Defense had never asked for. And we're like, well, hold on a second. We may have found something like that. We had no use for it, but maybe they did. And so that's something that we're seeing occur presently. Another thing that we are interested in is, if there's a company that we'd seen before, and say they were at a lower technology readiness level, or just TRL, and now they have something, you know, they're higher, right? Or they've found a way to add additional techniques or capabilities to their project that they're working. We would like to see a refresh on what they had submitted in the past, just to see now, well, maybe we may be interested in it. And there's sometimes that a company will be working on several different technologies, but the one that we had reviewed isn't something that we're interested in, but the other two ones that they just had on the back burner, now they've developed, we may be interested in those now. So, you know, to your point, Alan, it is sometimes to get a refresh on some of those. And that's why we've seen some of these companies come back and rebrief, because either their technology has advanced or they have something new that they want to showcase. I hope that answers.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we've got Michael Warren with his hand up. Michael, let's see. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Dave, I think this fits, my question fits into both what Alan brought up and what you brought up, but I'm not exactly, I guess I have a little bit different question along the same lines. I had an extremely positive experience with Encountering Innovation event. It was 2 years ago, and I was picked up by Brett Scharrighausen, who was just an awesome scout. And he socialized through, wrote a really nice letter. There was like 55 different contacts. And, you know, I spent the last 2 years applying to different agencies, whether it was a call out or what. And I remember the one in particular for DIU, the Defense Innovation Unit. It looked like their call out, like they had seen my video, I mean, and wrote the call out for it. And I didn't get picked up. So I'm not faulting them. I'm faulting myself that I must be doing something wrong. I mean, it's a TRL 6 and I can demonstrate it. And every time I demonstrate it, everybody's in love with it. But when you put it on paper, you know, to have a ring take over your phone and interface and all of that, it doesn't translate within the DoD. So what can I do? I mean, should I go through Encountering Innovation again, or can I, or should I connect with like someone like yourself again and see if either I'm presenting it wrong on paper? I mean, I'm assuming there's something I'm doing wrong. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so we see this actually come up a lot, and it's really, I'd say, between, you know, either who you're initially working with, in this case, like a DIU, or if it's, you know, just personality driven with who you are submitting to. I will say that positionally, a lot of jobs change who's in charge of them. There's sometimes where they'll have a funding source that's very small and they're unable to take on multiple projects, even though they'll put out, hey, we're asking for the world. And then you'll see that they really don't have the funding that you would expect them to have. And they basically are trying to just move the rock, you know, just an inch. And we're kind of seeing that right now, specifically with the continuing resolution, where a lot of budgets, even though it shows that they will get the money eventually, they're under a freeze right now because the money hasn't really hit their accounts. So we actually have at CENTCOM, there's 12 projects that we're working right now in our science and technology division. And of those 12, we only have funding for 2. Even though we have contracts with those companies, the other 10 as well, money has not been given to us by OSD, so Under Secretary of Defense. It's been frozen. So whenever you see a continuing resolution, just realize also that we may be promised the money within the fiscal year, but it's normally not given to us. And so everybody's sitting at a halt. The only time where they will definitely fund it if it's a critical technology, but other than that, they won't. So that's some of the things we're seeing now. Specifically to your tech, I couldn't answer that because I don't know. So and I used to sit right next to Brett. Unfortunately, he passed away back in August. That was terrible. He was a really good friend of mine. But and I'm familiar with everything he sent out because I helped him put all that together. We since we sat right next to one another, we would type all the stuff up. We'd check each other's work and then fire out the emails or support letters or whatever they were. But I will say that if you're relying on the Department of Defense for your company, I would say that's a shortfall. I would say, keep a go-to-market scheme for other venues, whether it be, in the commercial world. Department of Defense moves a little faster now, but we're still slow. Whether it would be with say you do get picked up, sometimes you may have to wait 1 or 2 quarters within the fiscal year before we can even put it on contract and get money rolling on it. That's outside of it being in a continuing resolution. But sometimes when we do get the ball rolling on them, there's a significant amount of money that's on the back end of it. So I tell everybody that if you do have a go-to-market scheme with your product, to keep 2 running in parallel. One that it would be to go into the commercial world, and the other one for DoD, and not, put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, for just Department of Defense. So that's probably the best answer I can give. And I'm not a company guy, believe me. I will give you, Alan will tell you I'm a straight shooter, because I don't speak on behalf of the government, so I can tell you my exact feelings on a lot of things. I think that a lot of the funding is personality driven. I think that there's sometimes they'll put out these announcements and they already have the company that they want to use picked, which is unfortunate. And it's just by law that they have to put that broad agency announcement out asking for it, but they already know who they're going to use. But I'm not trying to deter anybody, but I'm just trying to give you the whole truth as it stands. But you see that even in the civilian world as well, in industry. So we're DoD. We do have very sound business practices, by law, but there are, sometimes personalities drive us to not probably be as I would see as being probably the nicest ones to work with, just depending on which service you're working or with unit. But I will say that we rotate people out of those positions, every 2 to 3 years. So that is refreshing as well. So yeah, but it's cutthroat just within the DoD as it is in industry. Bill, I see you have your hand up.
No, I was just gonna add, kind of paralleling that idea of, the kind of knowing who they want to work with, that can work both ways too. Once it's hard to break into a system, but once you get into working with someone and you build trust, and you should be writing proposals that are better than some of the others that come in, because you've already been working together, their needs more intimately than somebody else would. So when you build that kind of a relationship, and they're picking between a company they don't know and a company they do know and trust, it's not necessarily that they're playing favorite, trying to just, a good old boy network, but if they really want to get something done and they've had success with one company, they're going to lean toward that. So it's hard to get in, but once you're in and you have that kind of trust level, it's a nice thing to have.
So we've got to that point, one of the things, and I'm going to get to Jordan. Jordan, you've written something, so I want to make sure we're going to get to it. I want to dovetail part of what Dave Rios just said, and Bill. I believe our job with the SBDC is to help our clients have a realistic point of view to their commercialization opportunity. We do not want to over-promise and give you false hope. At the same time, we don't want to create the idea that you don't have a chance. One of the things I have been the most amazed at, what Dave Rios just said, I don't know what the percentage is, but he only can share or talk to us from what's non-classified. it's amazing how many times I can remember in the past, somebody's talking and one of the tech scouts starts asking some very strange questions. So part of our prep is, for those of you that remember that have been here for a while, we'll tell you, okay, so you need to be ready for how fast or how slow your technology can be, how big can it be, how small can you make it, can you make it purple, can it go underwater? And you're like, why would you ask that? I don't know. They're looking at something that they can't share, so they ask questions that we don't know about for what their needs are. So part of that is you got to be ready for that. But the other part is this, in most cases, to what Dave said, you can't, if you're putting all your eggs or all your hope that this is going to happen, if that's all you've got left, then I would say definitely go for it. But if that's all you've got left, you got to realize you're swimming upstream, if you will, and it's very likely that it's not going to happen in time. What we want you to understand is that it's great preparation. Over and over, we hear from our clients saying presenting to the tech scouts was one of the best things for me, because I got used to being asked certain questions. I could speak better and I could present better. But if you're thinking that all you're going to do is talk to the tech scouts and no one else, then that's a mistake, which is why one of the things we're now adding is advanced manufacturing. It was David, I've gone blank, Bill, our Air Force SBIR director at one time. Anyway, he spoke. Yes, Shahady, Dave Shahady. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I just went blank. Dave Shahady spoke to us, and I think David Rios, I think you were in the room that year. You were with us, and he was talking to, it was an audience of the tech scouts and then of us, and he said, understand that technology, and I'm going to try to, as close as I can, quote him, but this is my interpretation of what he said. He said, understand that most technology innovation is not picked up at the prime contractor level. He said, and the way I took it was, they're too busy taking care of the contract that they got in hand. And he said the second, third, or fourth tier companies that are already contracted, so the subcontractors that are connected to that prime, are the ones that have the flexibility of looking at those, for those innovations and bringing those on. So what we started last year, so I'll call it our beta test year, reaching out to the primes, we were able to get Boeing Space here, and then NASA Goddard. Those two is what we would consider our primes, came last year. Diane Sterling, some of you remember, she was with Boeing Space. She has now moved to Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman, by some big surprise, is working with us because of Diane Sterling. Rick Slater been a part of that, a big part of that. But we're also working with Honeywell, and then we're going to be in a conference next week in Wyoming, where she's going to be discussing what she calls the STAR panel, and Rick will cover that in a second. But that information, what we're doing is we're trying to bring or attract those second, third, or fourth tier companies that are working with those primes to be at this conference. With the group today, we have at least one or two that I've seen that I would consider that level of company. So some are already here among you. And so part of what you need to do is what Dave Rios was talking about. If you're just hanging on just us, then that's probably not good practice. And what we want to give you is best practices. Best practices is expanding, and in this case, move over to the matchmaking as well. And so those of you that are in the recording, so you just now listening to this, that's part of our outreach as existing clients. If you haven't found that commercialization opportunity, or you haven't found enough commercialization opportunity, you should be here, because some of those companies are the ones that are looking for the innovation. Dave can give either David or Tim or Joe Hack, they can give references or socialization, but you're going to have to be looking for the companies that best fit for that outreach. That's my opinion, that those are some of the things that can help you. And it's still within the DoD commercialization track or avenue that we're talking about, but it's moving beyond or beside what they're doing. Whenever they're referring you to someone, you gotta start spreading the width of where do I go with that, not just with Dave Rios. Dave can say, so maybe you go back and say, Dave, where are some of the if you have a chance to talk with him, who's taking up some of those technologies or contracting in a way that I would look for who those people would be. That's part of what I'm trying to say. And I don't know if I said it well, but I think that's part of what we're doing with our advanced manufacturers now.
Thank you.
And
yes, I'd just like to add a little something to that, to my experience last year with encountering innovations and the matchmaking. And it took me a while to really understand the matchmaking dynamic, because we had really spoken a lot about the level of absolute perfection expertise that those companies who are really contracting directly with DoD really must have obtained. It's, a exactness that most startups are not at. So at first I thought, well, I won't do matchmaking, but I'm really looking forward to encountering innovation. Then as you explained more about this other process, that the point of intersection for the smaller, newer companies like our own is going to be with that second, third, or fourth tier, where they need a little something to plug in to something they're contracting. And that may be your best, really a good bet. That made me then go ahead and apply for the matchmaking. And, I'm understanding that that was all new last year, that you all worked so hard to put together the mechanism to make this happen in the future. So I just wanted to add that for all the companies that are small or, haven't made that impact yet they hope to, while they're pursuing other markets. That's a good point. Just to hang on and stay with your program, because there's a lot to learn by being a participant.
thank you. So see, yeah, Rick.
I had a question on, do you look at universities, either their research programs, and some of them are kind of training slash research. Do you look at universities too?
Now, who's that targeted
There's some
to?
that we're working, I'm talking to, and they're asking, hey, is this something, should I talk to the tech scouts? So just wondered.
Is that your question for Dave?
Yeah, for Dave.
Rios?
Okay. So I think my internet connection is terrible. I did get, I'm getting like just bits and pieces of the conversation.
I'll repeat
but you're
it.
talking about like academia submitting.
Yeah, because there's at the universities, they have a lot of programs where they're beginning to develop. I'll just give you an example of one that I talked to the other day, and they're doing a certificate, if you will, on drone technology. Everything from photogrammetry to the software to the different sensors and that, and they're putting that program together. Is that something that you would have an interest in, or tech scouts would be able to say, well, hey, talk to these folks over here?
So with respect to drones, or we just refer to them all as UAS now. So I will say that we've been overwhelmed with how many presentations we've received on drones, just DoD wide, because it's a rapidly emerging. So anything, I'll just talk to UASs. So there again, we're looking for swab size, weight, and power requirement for them, range, how much they can lift, and then their endurance. So, a lot of that's critically important, whether it's even ever going to be considered. And then reliability is probably the last thing on there. But, deeper into your question, I think that we do have sometimes difficulty working with universities, academia, and only when it comes to do with patents, because we've seen sometimes the person is running a shared patent with the university itself. So then when we try to put the technology on contract, it sometimes becomes problematic for who actually owns the technology and who are we paying, like who are we working with here? Because sometimes it's convoluted. And that's sometimes where the Department of Defense will just back out of it and go, no, this is too complicated. And then also the way that they have their go-to-market scheme set up. So, we like to hear from like the CTO or the commercialization transition office within the university to make sure that we can work directly with who we are working with, and not if we have to have someone from the university also sitting in on discussions.
So a follow-up question, David, and hopefully are you hearing this fairly clear?
Yeah.
Okay, is because we've got some universities on today and hopefully the others will be listening. Would it be worth their opportunity by stating something in the proposal, or if it's in the quad chart information, in such a way that the patent is the holding of the patent is clear, and in some way where they understand, where you understand that they've paid attention to that, where they know that they can license to you or sell?
Yes. So a couple things. One, the patent, like who owns the patent exclusively, and if it's shared, what are the arrangements within that? Another thing we need to know is sometimes when they now start doing work on within the contract, is that work have to be done by the university, or can we have, can that person that we're working with, are they the ones doing the work? Like who's doing the work? And then also, does the university have to work as a subcontractor to it, or is that person subcontractor? So a lot of it is just plain language. Who exactly are we working with, and what are the arrangements that university has with respect to the product? So we need to have an understanding what that working relationship is.
Okay. No, that certainly helps, and certainly it's at least when I was at NASA, it was rare to find a good CTO when working with the universities. That was always the tough part. Just moving just a little bit to the side of that, what about training programs which include, and in this case, the person has one, where actually his PhD is in photogrammetry, where they're teaching the photogrammetry how to look at and do an analysis on the imagery that comes back. And of course, the different sensors and how they work, and it's all in there. It's not so much building hardware that's going to fly. It's doing all of the soft end, if you want to call it that, on a training course. Is that the kind of thing that you look for too?
So I'd say the short answer to that is no. The only time I've seen them want to use those types of services is if it's required to start using the product that they're being sold, or if the only other exception I've seen is like in metallurgy and additive manufacturing processes. but then those become the train the trainer. So we just like, we don't want to continue going to the courses. We just want to get one or two or a small group trained, and then we then continue the training on ourselves. So we don't use it as a continuous training service.
That's
And a
good
lot of that
information.
is that the way that we have to operate, especially for our uniformed personnel.
I would just add something, Rick. From our experience in working with different tech scouts and working with universities and companies, I would say one of the driving factors, as much as anything, is this and this relates to research, relates to companies or universities. Is this a research project, or is this a commercialization project that involves research? And regardless, if it's somebody that just really wants to just further the technology without commercialization plans, it's really hard for the tech scouts to get behind that, because ultimately they want a solution to a problem in hand that they can send out. So a lot of it has to do with, are you actually driving to turn this into something that's going somewhere, or are you just, is this more basic research to be interesting?
Well, and yeah, I only had I had a fairly short conversation with this person, and they were asked to develop and they're calling it a certificate, it wouldn't be a degree, certificate program for adults, if you will, people in the field, that they could come in and get training. But because of his, his expertise in really the analysis of all this stuff and how it relates to the different sensors, he said, honestly, he said, I could see us doing a lot of, developing a lot of data on what can be done with it. And that's not really R&D, but it really kind of is. It's kind of applied R&D, if you will. And so he's actually just developing the program and was asking me, is that something that, we would want to, he would want to bring to the tech scouts, or how would he market it? And so that's why I bring it up, because it's a little bit of both. And but I think, Dave, you kind of it looks like the real focus is R&D to fix a problem, is your real focus, and that's okay. There's a lot of other, that's it answers my question anyway.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and I'm trying to read some of the questions that were put in chat. There was one, I guess someone said that they worked with Tim last year, and follow up with another gentleman who Tim had given their name to, and they were asking if that's a typical process. And I'd say, we try to hit different venues of within DoD, or sometimes in different departments, and some like to, that we go to them directly. Others, they'll give us someone to work with. There are really no specific common paths, but as for continuing to work with the tech scouts, what we typically like to do is we get somebody, and then we move out of that space, because that way we're not the go-between, because for us that just becomes overwhelming of a process. We do like to be kept in the loop if you're progressing, just so we kind of know, if it's successes and failures, but just on that level only. And I got another one from Jordan Peter. Oh no, that was it. Sorry, it was doubled in there. I'm seeing a couple other ones too, but I haven't had a chance to read them. I apologize. I can't read and talk at the same time. I've tried that before. I guess someone there put a success story in.
Alan, it looks like Sandeep has a question too.
Yeah, he's,
Comment. He's got his
he's-
hand raised.
I think he's going to contact me later.
Okay.
Sandeep, if you've got, did you want to say something now, or did you want to just go ahead and
I'll say
follow
it
up?
quickly. Dave, Wiki sent an email connecting us, and you were in the BCC. I think she tried a couple of times, and since then, after the Encountering Innovation last year, I've been seriously attempting to reach out to you, and I would love to work with you. So if you can send contacts, that would be great. Your details. And Alan, I sent you a personal message saying that I am actually driving from Memphis to Denver, and you are 2 hours away. Can I stop by to say hi and meet you in person?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to. You do know I'm in Wichita, so if you're driving through Wichita on the way, that's perfect.
Yeah. And I'm up here too, not too far from Alan and Vicky.
Yeah. So you could see all three of us. Rick is in Houston, and we're out of the Topeka Center. But if you're on I-70 already, then you'll be an hour out of your way. That'd be 2 hours. So I don't think you want to do that.
Oh, okay. So I put in, what is that, Johnson County Community College?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
not,
yeah. We're not officed up there. Our host is up there, Jessica and Valerie. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. What I'll do is that I'll communicate with you, and maybe if it's possible on Monday, while coming back, then I'll reach out to you, and we'll see if it is possible that we can meet.
Well, I'd love to see you. That's great. Thanks,
Yes.
Sandeep. I appreciate that.
Now Alan's
you.
not
And
going to be
Dave-
in the suit though.
Yeah, Dave, please don't forget to send me your contact detail, please.
Okay.
So I want to say one thing on behalf of our tech scouts. We don't want to be the gatekeeper and you feel like you can't get to the tech scouts. But I got to say, as busy as we are, this thing becomes exponentially different at their level, and so we do our best to. That's why the one thing I have discovered is if you trust us with the way to communicate to our tech scouts, then it becomes very effective. And they will look at your information, just like he said earlier. Sometimes we know stuff that we can't even share with you that may be similar to your technology or whatever. They are very, and I would say extremely collaborative. They do a great job. And I think part of that is because we do listen, and we try our best to get you to communicate in such a way. That's why our process is even semi-automated now, to where you get a quad chart and an information paper from us, from your application. Same thing on the capability matrix side. By some of the information we're now putting in the capability matrix. Our job now is to try to get all of you, advanced manufacturers, as well as tech, to be able to communicate publicly in a way that we can give your information to each other. That's how we're going to see more and more commercialization happen. If your tech scouts we will pass information to them as they request it, and we will purposely, as Sandeep said, blind carbon copy the tech scout. We'll put their name on there so you know that it went to them. It's up to them to decide when they want to reveal. And if they reveal, it's because they need to talk with you directly and communicate. If they don't, then they don't. And so I hope you trust that your personal conversation with them is not necessarily going to help you. If you think it will, then I would say then put your bluff. As when Dave Rios sees your bluff, he knows he already knows it. He's got the rest of the information. Then just bullet point whatever it is you think most, why this is different, why you need to see it. That's exactly why, for all of you that are existing technologies, what is the new capability, or what are you willing to do different with your technology? And that's why we've asked, are you still innovative? Are you still innovating in your innovation as you're trying to bring it to market? Or are you sold on what you've done? If you're like, no, this is what it is, it's nothing else. Well, then if they don't need it, they don't need it. If it is something they need and you're willing to be innovative, or you're willing to flex, then that's different. What's the capability that you're bringing that's new? Is it new? Is it smaller? There we go back to those ranges again: smaller, larger, faster, slower, lighter weight. It's less cost. Those are things that are of interest. Part of your best opportunities are our advanced manufacturers, because if you can start getting something commercialized, then first of all, you've got reason to exist for yourself from a cash flow perspective. And then secondly, you've got third-party endorsement that I think your tech scouts are interested in.
If I could add something here, just to what you're saying, and when the tech scouts only have so much ability to track different things, and your technology may be really interesting, but just isn't a fit for what they need or know right now. But one of the things I just really want to say is that the benefit of presenting to them is that they are exposed to an awful lot of what's going on, what trends are, especially in the DoD. And one of the things, and Dave, I really want to say thank you to you and the Tech Scout team. When you have a 20-minute slot with the Tech Scouts, from what I've seen, they try really hard to give you 20 minutes of undivided attention as much as possible. You don't see them sitting there, just dinking around on their phone a lot, maybe really quick, just doing something. They're focused on you. And I liken it to sitting down with an advisory board that has volunteered their time for 20 minutes to give you their best shot. And these are people with a lot of experience and a lot of background to sit down with you for 20 minutes and say, okay, this is some areas that you might consider moving forward. And have you considered a market that's totally unrelated to what you're talking about? You will walk away from that meeting. If you never have any other contact with them again, even if you aren't referred to anybody, you will walk away with a more extensive understanding of your technology and where to go with it. It is significant. I've only ever seen, Dave, you guys probably have 2 or 3 companies where they presented and they were just so off the wall. Everybody just kind of said, hey, that's really interesting. I don't have anything, in that realm. And sometimes actually some of those companies were companies that didn't listen well when we were trying to prep them, and they just gave a sales. So anyway, thank you for Dave and others for your efforts in tech scouting. It really helps our companies.
So we're past the 1 o'clock period. So as far as Bill always tells us to be aware of the time. So for the technology folks that were wanting to talk with Dave Rios, I am glad you're here. For those that are online listening to this after it's been recorded and historically, I'm going to encourage you, if you have direct questions that you now think are appropriate, we'll be glad to take them and put them in a document in a way that we can send it back to David for a follow-up. But I do want to encourage you, if you've got specific
that'll be fine. I can go back and answer them if you send them to me.
Cool. But what I was going to say is, if this is about your innovation, then I really want to respect the process that they put us in, to where it's with your quad chart, your bluff. So if that's what it's about, then come back to us. If you're working with another state, SBDC, and you've got direct connection through them, that's fine. If not, we'll be glad to work with you. Let's do it in a way that is productive. So it's the bluff. If you need to revise your bluff, do that. This year, we're working very hard to create that capability matrix, which is what Rick wants to give a little bit of an update on. we want to get your bluff in a way that others can understand you, where they can say, I want to talk to Ann Dupuy. Can you get her connected? Or Michael Warren, that type of thing. So that's part of what the revised bluff is about. And then updating your quad chart information paper. And honestly, I think what we're going to do is go back to, for those of you that are tech only and you're not manufacturing at all, then we're probably going to get you to go back and update your poster board, which is a document now. And what we'll do is go back after you've applied, and we make sure that we've updated your quad chart and information paper. Those two feed the poster board. Okay, so Bill, whenever he's editing or asking questions, or your tech coach is asking questions about those two documents, that's why we don't automate your poster board immediately. We want to let those updated, edited documents become the right information to your poster board. But your poster board can be your capability statement for our advanced manufacturers. So we're going to be pushing for that and try to make that the quality communication with them as well. Rick, you're back. I think we're good with the questions and answers. So I know Rick wanted to talk for a few minutes about an update on the advanced manufacturing or the matchmaking side.
Yeah, and I'll make it real quick. We sent out yesterday kind of a revised notice on the Encountering Innovation event. And on it, we talked about, in the center section, we kind of replaced it with what was there. And we talked about the matchmaking, and there's a link to be able to go and sign up for Encountering Innovation, and specifically the matchmaking. More importantly, we put the due date in there. And what we're trying to do is to have everyone sign up by the end of the month, by April 1st. That allows us time to put it all together and to send it out to all of you and all of the large primes, and the most important at this point being Northrop Grumman, because it's got an $8.3 billion 5-year contract, and I think it's 79. What is it? It's a 79-year contract or something like that, and something like almost $70 billion ultimately. And that's a big one that's going to be talked about at the at Encountering Innovation. But we also kind of changed it up a little bit, and we've added a couple of different columns in there, or a little bit of extra information. The most important being your bluff, is having the bluff in there, because one of the things in talking to Diane Sterling with Northrop Grumman, and a couple of other primes, they are interested in talking with small businesses, but the information, they don't want to have to guess, and not having the bluff in there, it made it a little more difficult to decide whether or not they wanted to talk with someone. And the NASA folks last year said the same thing. I said it wasn't a big problem, so we changed it up a little bit. So everyone has to put the information back in. You don't have to put, you're not really signing up as a client if you've already done that, but you do have to put that information in, including your bluff. And I just wanted to quickly say, by the end of the month is when we're trying to get it. If people sign up after that, we will do our best to try to get it to the primes. And of course, we'll send it kind of routinely, if you will, to the other small businesses. But if you have it by the end of the month, you've got your best shot at having somebody sign up, either to talk to you, and you won't be able to actually invite anybody to talk, because you won't have seen you won't have seen the capability matrix. So I know I hurriedly went through all that. If you have any questions, The one thing I did want to leave you though, and I'll see if I can do it. I am going to, oh, let's see if it'll do it. I'm not sure. We may have to send it, but we will send it to everyone. I've got the listing of what Diane Sterling at Northrop Grumman said, this is what we are looking for right now. And I think, yeah, for some reason it won't let me put something that big, I think. I'm going to try it again now, but we'll send it out to everyone. If you want, I can just very quickly share the screen.
Rick, if you want to send that to me, I'll have the attendees list and we can get that out.
Okay, well, right here, let's see. If you want to just take a real quick look at it, this is what she sent me. And if you notice on the SBIRs, there's 5 priorities that they're looking at, but these are the different areas that they're going to be looking to do matchmaking with folks on. So we'll send this out to you so you can get it.
And just to add to what Rick was saying, for those of you that have presented your before, you may or may not want to participate in the tech transfer part, pitching to the tech scouts. If you feel like you've already had, they already kind of know what you're doing, but you're welcome to participate in the matchmaking as a separate entity. You can do either one or both, is what I'm saying. But you only get the matrix, the capability matrix, if you're signed up in matchmaking.
Yeah. And so that's why we had to put a fairly short, by the end of the month to get people done. We know people are going to sign up after that. It's just going to be hit or miss. We'll keep sending things out, but if somebody's already looked at the list, it's hard to say whether they'll look at it again. So that's why we sent that out. I think it's went out this morning, didn't it, Alan? Or was it yesterday?
Okay, I'm not sure I'm following you. Which part went out?
This is the notice. Remember you sent it out to everyone?
That's the one that Vicky, you're talking about the one that you sent out?
Right. I just can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before or this morning.
Yeah, I haven't sent anything new out, so I've got revisions. So if you don't see what he's talking about, you will see it, because I'm trying not to send this too many times to everyone. But if you know between yourself and others, please let them know about it. But yeah, well, if I don't know if it went out, I've got too much going on in my head.
Okay. Well, and that's why I couldn't even remember what day or if it had gone out. We got it ready. So that's all there really is on the matchmaking. We just kind of want to tell you about the date. When you do get it, it takes your right to be able to sign up. And so I think that's about all on matchmaking for right now.
I want to, so I had a question someone asked me earlier. So I wanted to answer the question and demo if I can get this done right. So I don't know if I'm going to have to stop the request if I can. I think it's going to, let's see if it'll, there we go. Try this again. There we go. For those of you that have been around a while, you've seen this before. But this is our KansasSBDC.net website. You can see tech commercialization is in the center, because obviously tech commercialization is the center of everything, right? Everybody agrees, right? Thumbs up, yeah. And so with that is Encountering Innovation, or you can go directly to encounteringinnovation.com. So I had someone ask, I've registered, I've done the actual, what we call register, where I've gone through this information. This is our center site where you go in here and it talks about things that we talked about, the conference and what the intent is. If you're new, you go to new client, sign up. If you've already been there before, then you reach out to Vicky, which is what Vicky had in the chat, reminding everyone, if you've already been a client, unless you're coming in as a new client, different from the technology, you want to be separate, then you're just contact her, and then we send you, it's a survey is what it is. It's a question and answer. But for us, the tool is inside our system. We send out a survey and you answer it. And then we take that information, it goes to Bill and to Rick. But the question was, now that I've filled that out, I've completed it, what do I do to complete the finishing up for the registration? And so, Vicki, that's the part that's Johnson County Community College. And do you know at this point, sorry, I'm getting there. Do you know, have they opened up the link for paying?
I don't think they have, but let me see if I can try something. Because I think Jessica was just finalizing that yesterday.
Yeah, they just settled on the cost, and then from the soft cost, the hard,
Yeah,
the prices. So they were settling all that. Our job, we're funded through SBA first. That's the federal. Well, it's a congressional act that funds us. From that funding, SBA is the oversight for us. So most of the time we say funding from SBA, which is not accurate. SBA is our oversight. Our second for us in the state of Kansas is a match from, in this case, it's through the Department of Commerce. It's basically a legislative funding that they fund through Department of Commerce. The Department of Commerce is a match or an oversight. We have Chris here today. And then our third is our host institution. So we're funded in three parts. That is how our outreach is for you. Point being, our intent is to not charge you anything. Our host has certain costs that they incur beyond us working and their personnel. So those, what I call those soft costs, are what they pass on to you in the conference. So that's why and we do everything we can to keep that cost down. This year it's as little as $120 or $149 to if you're an online person only, you're just going to be here virtually, or if you're there in person, which includes food, then the cost goes up.
I don't see the information out there, Alan.
Okay, I would imagine so to the question, John, for those that once you've done that part, as soon as that's live, we will go back in here and it'll be on Encountering Innovation on am I still sharing or did I stop sharing?
Yeah.
Yes, you're still sharing.
Okay. So once that the ability to pay for it is finished, it will probably be a button on here on the landing page itself, most likely. So you will see how to pay for the conference itself.
And we will send notification also out to everyone. As I receive a note, once I know that your application to participate in the conference has been submitted, then I will follow up with you with an email. And I've done that to date with anyone that has applied, saying thank you. And we'll be in touch with you about your next steps. And we'll keep you posted and refer you back to the Encountering Innovation website when those different links, like the conference registration information, is out there and available. We'll keep you posted on all of that, any updates.
Right now, part of the change for those of you that are our existing clients from the past, you see that there's not a multiple button down here. We've got that. We've moved that information up to our training and support, where there's tech transfer, training materials and videos. So for those of you in matchmaking, they would click on that tech transfer. It'll start to look closer to what you've seen in the past. You've probably seen this slide before where it says if you're coming back, and so what Vicki was just talking about, you fill out information that goes to where she'll know that you're an existing. Those that you can shortcut that by just emailing her, like we just talked about. Same thing in the tech transfer side. You see matchmaking on that side. We are going to do our best. For those of you that haven't gone here, we have video links in here, unless it says coming soon. We've got videos from last year. We may refer to NASA or NASA Goddard in part of that, but that same information, everything we're talking about is almost identical except for who some of the primes are. It's just getting bigger. So if you remember what you did last year, it's really pretty much the same. We're just trying to get more and more. Our hope is to get to 200 in the match or total companies, to where we have even more to match make. All right, I think that's it for us. I apologize that we went over, but I'm pretty impressed that we were able to get all that done, and it's only 1:20. Any last questions or comments? Okay, I think a big round of applause to Dave Rios. Dave, thank you so much for participating and coming today. I'm so glad you came. I didn't have certain contact information, and I was hoping he was coming. Vicky and Bill saw me kind of freaking out right before you showed up. So we're very glad you're here. I know you're busy, so we appreciate your time.